These are my top 3 tips for flipping property.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what?
Hey, what's up guys? Hope you're all well. So I am bringing you another top 3 tips, and this time it's all about flipping properties. And we're going to be discussing the 2 main things to consider, which is time and cost. But as ever, before we get started, I need you all to do me a huge favor, which is smash the like button and don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell icon next to it. So flipping properties is a great strategy. It's a great fun way of getting into properties, stamping your mark on a property, learning lots of things as you go, and then eventually, hopefully, selling for a good profit. And flipping properties can be anything from buying a semi-detached 2-bedroom bungalow and selling it literally a few weeks later, right through to buying a piece of land, gaining planning permission, building the block of flats or development out, and then selling it on for a profit. But I'm going to focus more down the single property flip technique in this video. And the top 3 tips are going to be around that type of strategy. And we're going to break it down to the 3 tips. The first one is going to be all about price and costs. Then secondly, it's going to be time. Time is one of the things that gets forgotten about most of all in these buying and selling strategies. And then to finish, we're going to talk about, you guessed it, the target market. So tip number 1 has to be all about the purchase price. Because like buying and selling anything, if you buy something cheap enough, you are always going to be in a better position when you come to sell it, no matter what happens to the market or the price. So it kind of goes without saying that you should try and negotiate the best deal possible for you. And I say best deal because that doesn't always necessarily mean paying the bottom price. Negotiating a good deal has lots of different moving parts, and you might end up paying a little bit more, like I've said in previous videos, but you can negotiate your way to take control of the property, which doesn't mean that you have any finance costs, which overall could land you a better overall deal. And then there are all of the costs that you need to spend to buy the property, bring it up to scratch, and then sell it on. Right through to lawyers' costs, through to the conversion, right through to the estate agent selling fees. So tip number 1 is to make sure you understand every single cost. Because if you don't plan for something like stamp duty and your profit margin is only say 20 or 30,000 and you're buying a property for around 250,000, your stamp duty could be up to £10,000, which is a third of your overall profit. So you must, 1, understand every single cost, and 2, know exactly where you can negotiate better deals, strip costs out, and only spend where you really have to. I've said this on a number of videos. There is no point in spending money where it doesn't add any value. So if you are looking at a property like say a little bungalow and it doesn't need a new roof or it doesn't need new windows, there is no point in spending money where you don't have to. And this also can be said about spending any money whatsoever. Sometimes if you negotiate a good enough deal, you can flip that property straight on through auction or on the open market without doing anything to it. So if your profit margin was say 100,000 by buying it and literally just selling it, but it was only going to be say 120,000 if you converted it to a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, but you had to spend 50,000 on it, and the uplift in price didn't warrant you spending that extra money, then don't do it. Flipping is about buying and selling as quickly as possible, which kind of brings me nicely on to top tip number 2, which is time. Now, the profit margin can be as good or as bad as the length of the project. So I'm talking about £100,000 profit can be great if you do it in 6 to 12 months. But if that project takes you 10 years, then it's not so good when you spread it out over the 10-year period. You're talking about £10,000 a year. So time is fundamental to absolutely everything. This is why planning gains or getting planning for extensions or splitting the dwelling into 2 isn't necessarily always the best thing for your profit over time. My view on a flip is to buy, sell as quickly as physically possible. But if you can add value and it takes a bit more time, then that is a commercial decision which needs to be calculated. But don't necessarily think that planning gain for extra units, extra space is always going to mean extra profit over time. I looked at a project just the other month where it was a commercial building and it had planning permission for, I think, for 8 flats. But 6 were within the existing shell and the other 2 were building up from floor 2 to floor 3, literally adding a whole nother floor for 2 extra flats in a low value area. The build cost didn't warrant the final value increase by just these 2 flats. So more isn't always necessarily better. Time is your friend. Make sure it doesn't become your enemy. Getting in, getting out, buying and selling, and understanding the path of least resistance to those 2 points is fundamental. And then top tip number 3 is understand who is buying that property. It is no good buying something really cheap, spending a load of money on it and making it really nice, and you don't understand the end user, the final market that you're targeting. Now, I did this in my very first property. I bought a really cheap terrace house and I spent loads of money on the refurb doing exactly how I wanted it, but the market didn't exist for who was going to pay that price that I wanted to sell it for. Now, thankfully, because it took a little bit longer in time, this is where time can help you, where things go a little bit out of control, the market increased dramatically. So I was still able to make a profit. And that is the good thing about property. If you buy a duff deal or you spend too much money or you get the market wrong, if you hold on to it long enough, the market will recover or increase enough for you to make a good profit. And I've done business with people who have built massive portfolios based on overspending but holding properties long term. But we don't want to be doing that. An entrepreneurial business view of property flipping is to understand how much you can buy it for, how much you can sell it to, who you're going to sell it to, who's going to buy that property, and the time frame it's going to take. And you take into all those things into consideration, you should be able to work out your profit. I think 100,000 profit between 6 to 10 to 12 months is a reasonable rate of return. If a deal's going to take 2 years, I want to be doubling it, 3 years, tripling it, and so on. And that is how I literally look at every flip. And if I can buy a deal and flip it straight on without spending any money, without getting a planning gain, then all the more better for me. And a great place to do this is to buy at auction and sell on the open market. But a few years ago, the auction place was the hot place to be. And you could buy a property on the open market and sell it in the auction, and you would get 2 retail buyers bidding against each other and overpay for the property. So this isn't about picking a strategy and sticking to it. It's about understanding what the masses are doing in each market at any given time and slipping in between the cracks. But that's it from me. Hope you found the content rich. I'll catch you all on the next video.